Welcome on into another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm your host, John Casper. Once again, we're joined by Craig Haley, the man, the myth, the legend from FCS Football. He knows it all. Thanks for joining us again this week, Craig.
My pleasure. Thank you, John.
So only one Big Sky game last week. UC Davis beat Cal Poly, a game that was originally scheduled for the first week of the season, was moved for COVID reasons. But man, they might need to replace some light bulbs on that scoreboard at Davis before they play this week there. Talk about a little bit about that offensive performance.
Wow. I mean, UC Davis, I think they're underrated at this point. I mean, they've had three terrific performances, three terrific results. I mean, 18-13 losing at Weber's, still an excellent performance. I just think they've been efficient all over. Both sides of the ball, even special teams, with the punting. I mean, they didn't have to do it last week, but I just think UC Davis is really on a roll. Not surprising because Coach Hawkins is outstanding.
Yeah, his son has taken over offensive coordinator duties. The previous offensive coordinator is now at Boise State, but really have not skipped a beat, even losing a great quarterback like they did. Really impressive, I think. I think you're right. I think they probably are underrated at this point. So this week we have a full schedule of Big Sky Conference games. We're excited about that because we actually have not had a full week. We've played all the games. So, to me, the one that stands out is obviously the Eastern Washington Cal Poly game. You have Beau Baldwin returning to the Inferno. And Craig, some people don't know that the very first game at the Inferno, you and I were there. You came out and the weekend together, went over to showed you Lake Coeur d'Alene and the Pretty, but you were there for that first game. And the history that Beau Baldwin has there. How special do you think this is going to? I mean, obviously his team's not great right now, but what kind of weekend it's going to be for Beau and JC Sherritt and some of those other Eastern Washington connections.
I think it's terrific. I mean, it's almost kind of a pass this year for Cal Poly just because they're going through a transition of offenses. You deal with a lot in what we've dealt with in the last year. I mean, yes, you want to be competitive, you want to win games, but he's going to get that program, on another level, just like, the way he had Eastern going the last decade. I mean, I think it's terrific. It really should be, an Eastern victory, but he's great for the game. He's great for Big Sky. It's just fun. Even last week, I mean, I just think that was a great event. UC Davis hosting their 1,000th game and to have Beau Baldwin back in the Big Sky. He has the most conference wins of any coach. So I just think it's he's good for the game.
So UC Davis, we talked about them. They're ranked number 15 right now. They're playing Idaho State. Idaho State's a team that very easily could have knocked off Eastern Washington a couple weeks ago. Wild game there. Eastern Washington comes back and wins late. What does UC Davis need to look out for against the Bengals?
Yeah, I think, Tyler Vanderwall's, certainly a quality quarterback. And then Idaho State always has, quality offense. I mean, it could be, kind of a track meet, but, being at home certainly helps UC Davis. But, you just can't. You have to take week to week. So, I mean, I think UC Davis needs to realize that coming off a big win, heavily favored here, you can't get ahead of yourself, concentrate on Idaho State and get through this game. It should be a game UC Davis should win, but at the same time, you can't take anybody lightly, not in conference play.
Now, so Weber State at home this week against Northern Arizona. They're in a position, obviously being third, they can't slip up if they want to get a top 4 seed in this year's playoffs. What should we look out there for against Northern Arizona?
Well, having only played the 2 games so far, I think Weber, this is the week where you have to get into your rhythm, win this game and then, start playing, on a weekly basis. They're off to a strong start at quarterback, Bronson Barron, stepping in and answering a question that everybody had about the Wildcats. I mean, he has so many weapons. The defense is going to be terrific as it always is. Coach Hill is outstanding. I mean, just another game here where you can't take Northern Arizona lightly. I mean, they're looking to get in a rhythm as well. They've kind of had two different quarterbacks, and Weber at home should win this game. It's very much like UC Davis. Just it's time to get into a rhythm.
Well, I'm excited for that game because it's 10 minutes from my house, and I have not attended a Big Sky Conference, seen a Big Sky Conference football team play since December of 2019. I have seen a Big Sky Conference football game every year since 1993. So I'm definitely going to be up at Weber State. It's been way too long since I've seen a live football game. So the last game that we have this week in the conference, to me, is intriguing. It's Southern Utah at Idaho. Southern Utah, I mean, their first two games lost last second, and Idaho's coming off a COVID break here. What do you see this? How do you see that one playing out?
That's a fun game. I mean, if there's anybody who's, flying under the radar, it's Justin Miller, the quarterback at Southern Utah. I mean, he's just been, throwing touchdowns galore, and he's got so many weapons at wide receiver. I mean, yeah, they have a chance here against Idaho. Idaho's, another team that needs to start getting in a rhythm of playing weekly. I mean, they're talented. They're a playoff contender, but, another dangerous game at home. I mean, as we talk, I realize that it's similar scenarios here where the home team should win, but there's danger involved. And at the same time, the home team, just has to start getting in a weekly kind of rhythm.
Awesome, Craig. Thanks so much for your insight on this week's Big Sky schedule. We're going to talk about some national things here in a second, but first we're going to kick it over to Mary Louise Cook to highlight the Root Sports Football Players of the Week.
Thanks, John. This week we saw the UC Davis Aggies sweep the Big Sky Weekly Honors after a record-setting 73-24 win over Cal Poly at home. On the offensive side of the ball, junior quarterback Hunter Rodriguez earned the award. He completed 19 of 23 passes for 265 yards and 3 touchdowns, while adding a 2-yard rushing TD of his own. On the defensive side of the ball, senior linebacker Cole Hansen led UC Davis in tackles for the second consecutive game. He posted 8 total stops with 4 tackles for losses of 15 yards. Senior defensive back Isaiah Thomas earned the special teams honor after posting a 30-yard punt return for his sole run back of the game. It was that return that raised his career yardage total to 443, putting him 5th in school history. He also provided 3 solo tackles and an interception. Back to you, John.
All right. Welcome back in. Thank you so much, Mary Louise. A lot happening nationally in the FCS this week with Illinois State's decision to opt out for the remainder of the season after 1-3 start. I know this has created some good news stories out there. Some teams maybe not being happy about it, but Craig, if they're 3-1, do you think they're doing this?
Oh, that's a tough question. No, not if they're 3-1. I mean, they're 1-3. They're making this decision coming off a win. They are a little depleted, at a position, I believe it's defensive line. And yeah, you don't want to see it happen. I mean, there's 4 teams that are losing a game here and not being given a forfeit win either. I mean, under league rules. So that's difficult for the opponent as well. It's kind of a decision where when you see it, it takes you by surprise. But then when you think about everything we're involved with health and safety of athletes and just the whole pandemic and what we've gone through, it's probably not surprising. So, perhaps it happens again at another school. But it's just an unfortunate, occurrence that we probably should have realized all along is going to happen here in this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, working in the league office and dealing with this for the last year, knowing that a full schedule is coming up starting in early September, it is a concern of a lot of coaches and student athletes and how this spring season is going to affect the fall, because I think everyone has the same mindset. We don't want it to have a great impact on the fall and lessen that experience. So totally understandable. And we had teams that opted not to play. A lot of it that being that reason that we've got to turn around and play a full season in the spring, and we only have 63 scholarships. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a couple more teams take this route in the next couple of weeks. Now, back on the field, Stats Perform does the top 25. You guys do a great job with everything. We got 2 of your ranked teams, Delaware, Rhode Island. Rhode Island, when they're ranked, it's always kind of a surprise. What do you think of this game, the CAA matchup this week?
I tell you, it's funny you ask about that game because this has been a spring of some surprising teams, and Rhode Island is right up there with all of them. I mean, you're also talking like a VMI is undefeated, and Murray State's undefeated. Incarnate Word is down in the South that's undefeated. Teams that aren't really the blue bloods of the FCS. Rhode Island, they're such a surprise because they only returned maybe 6 starters, and they went 0-8 in the CAA 2 years ago, the last season, 2019. So for them to jump out like this and win 2 road games against ranked opponents in conference is phenomenal. And both of them were in overtime. They're hosting Delaware, which is off to a great start. And the last time they played each other, that went 3 overtimes. And actually, the funny thing with Delaware is they've had a shutout and allowed 3 points in their 2 wins. The last time that happened, that was 2010. They went to the national championship game and lost to Eastern Washington.
Yeah, you and I were both at that game. So yeah, I'll never forget that Delaware Eastern Washington game. You mentioned VMI. When I looked at the standings and schedules for this week, that really surprised me to see VMI ranked 14th and 4-0. They have Wofford this week. Wofford is 1-2 right now, but always a dangerous team in the Southern Conference. VMI hasn't won a conference title since 1977. I think, you and I were toddlers probably at that. What's going on at VMI?
They started taking steps towards this 2 years ago, and had a nice season for them, 5-7, and they've just rolled it into this year. They have an outstanding quarterback, Reese Udinsky, who's actually playing this spring and then is going to grad transfer to Maryland in the fall. He's rewritten the record book there. In fact, last week's win, he set their passing yardage record, and he had just about all the other ones. So it's just a team that knows how to win now, not scared of anybody. I mean, they've just turned it around. And the last 2 weeks, that's the first time they've been ranked as an FCS program. They date to 1982 is when they moved into the FCS, had never had a ranking until 2 weeks ago. And now here they are, just surprising everybody.
But, those are the types of stories I think that we need in sports that, COVID's obviously been very hard, but to see those kids, push through that and be at 4-0 ranked, that's a really cool story to me. So
in a military academy.
So VMI this week against Wofford.
Yeah, military school, you just have all the respect in the world for them.
Absolutely. So we've reached, at least in the Big Sky, kind of the halfway point. We played 3 weeks, had that week we built in for makeup games. I think that some people are wondering, hey, is there going to be a Walter Payton Award? Is there going to be a Buck Buchanan Award? What is the plan with that this year?
Yes, we are giving out all our legacy awards, the Walter Payton, Buck Buchanan, Eddie Robinson, the Jerry Rice, the Doris Robinson for Scholar Athlete. The day before the national championship game in Frisco, the championship game's on the 16th. So the 15th we'll announce the Payton and Buchanan winners. The other 3 we announce ahead of time. We're not having a national banquet. But we will have a remote show for people to tune into. Yes, it's a little bit harder this year because you're talking about some schools maybe playing 3 games, some playing, 8 or 10 if they, if you go back to the fall and then they're playing again in the spring. So the resumes of players, just like the resumes of teams in the top 25, are just so diverse that it puts a lot on voters to make their decisions. But yes, we will have all 5 legacy awards.
I just got me thinking, Trey Lance won it last year. He played 1 game in the fall, probably not going to win it this year, but that would be interesting because he's going to be probably drafted in the NFL by that time. So
yes,
what an exciting player he was. I wish Some people wish or glad he's probably not at North State anymore, but he was good for FCS football. Craig, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Okay, really appreciate it, John.
All right, thanks, Craig. All right, let's take it over to Mary Luz as she breaks down the current Big Sky Conference standings.
With only one game having been played during the open week, we saw minimal changes in the standings. After picking up a historical win over Cal Poly at home, UC Davis moved up in the standings. The team set records in both points and offense after their 73-24 win over their in-state opponent, Cal Poly. The Aggies are one of the 3 league teams ranked nationally, as they are ranked 15th in the Stats Perform FCS poll and 19th in the AFCA coaches poll. Also nationally ranked is Eastern Washington. The higher power offense that the Eagles sport is a catalyst to their national ranking of number 12 in the Stats Perform FCS poll and number 11 in the AFCA coaches poll. And the only team undefeated in league play, the Weber State Wildcats, have ranked in the top 3 of the Stats Perform FCS polls all year long. They have also received a ranking of number 2 in the AFCA coaches poll. Expect more movement in the standings next week as we have a full slate of Big Sky football on Saturday. You can catch all 4 Big Sky football home games for free on Pluto TV and watchbigsky.com. Until Saturday, let's keep the conversation going on social media. Be sure to give @BigSkyConf a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you're looking for around-the-clock information on Big Sky football, be sure to follow @BigSkyFB on Twitter. Thanks for joining us for this week in Big Sky football. We'll see you right back here next week.